it takes an hour or a day for an investor to change their mind. As an operator, there are real reasons why it will take you a month to change your mind. It took certain companies 2 weeks, other companies 2 years to figure out that everything has changed. And I think the same is true for people who do not recognize all the tools and the resourcefulness of this new technology and how you can fundamentally build companies differently now. I think right now is the best time to build businesses or companies. I genuinely believe that. Like $1 million will go a long way than $1 million did back in 2020 or 2022. You can find A+ talent here now. And on top of that, depending on what your business model is, I think this is the only part of the world globally where your revenues are pegged to Europe and US, but your labor cost, if I may, right, or human capital cost is not really pegged to those places. So there are moments when a founder has to lean in, and then there are moments when you have to let go, and you need to see how the right people are allowing you to scale. And specifically when a company seed stage or Series A scales, at the time of scale, I've seen it time and again that founders cannot learn it because this is their baby. They've worked on it for 3 years every day. They've thought about it almost 95% of their time, right? So it's very difficult for them to let go and let someone else in a different market make decisions and take it forward. So I joined July of 16, and in November they became unicorn with that round that came in,
same year.
Right, the same year. So that was the moment that sort of that money came in, and then we saw how that money is being spent across.
Did you know that they were going to become a unicorn when you started?
Not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all. For me, I think luck is a lot more favorable to people who are a bit prepared or are in the battlefield.
Hey founders, ready to match with your next investor? At lucidityinsights.com, we've built the Middle East's first Tinder for startup founders and VCs. Explore 800 verified VC and angel profiles, see who they're funding, and send your pitch deck directly, all in one place. Stop waiting for introductions. Make your own luck at lucidityinsights.com. And for a limited time, get 20% off your startup registration with the code TPP20 at checkout.
Hi, welcome everybody to another episode of Lucidity Insights, The Perfect Pitch. I'm your host, Erika Welch, and I'm sitting down here today with another amazing investor from right here in the region, but specifically here in Abu Dhabi, called Shorooq. And Omer Zabit is their newest partner on the deck. Welcome.
Thank you, Erika. Pleasure being here.
It's really lovely to have you. I'm really excited, but first I want to congratulate you on your latest promotion. You've been with Shorooq for just over 3 years, I believe. And in April this year, you were promoted as partner.
Been with the firm for over 3.5 years now. Okay. I joined them Jan of 22. The first day of that year, I sort of came in. It's been an exhilarating journey, to be honest.
Mabruk. I'm also excited because I'm always excited whenever I see someone sitting across from me that is now an investor that was on the operating side for so long. And so I want to give people a little bit of that background, and I want to start there as well. So Omer, you basically had 5 years at Careem. And for those people tuning in internationally that don't know what Careem is, Careem was bought out by Uber for $3.2 billion, exactly. I believe. That was 2019. When that announcement was made. You were there during that announcement and before as well. You started out with them in Pakistan and then came over and ran their, I was going to say Uber Food, but it's Careem food business. But before that, as a Pakistani national, you actually started out in fintech in Pakistan. You were with Easy Paisa. Did I pronounce that right? For about 2 years. And I was amazed by this. 45 million users today. And 50 million users at Jazz Cash, where you were there for 2.5 years. So it's not just Careem, who now, they say they serve 70 million customers. You have been at some major scale-ups in the region. Talk to me a little bit about this experience, this operating experience, and how you got into it, from your background. Go backwards with me for a little bit.
Yeah. So Erika, I'll actually take even a step back from Easy Paisa and Careem days, right? So I began my career building and selling data centers for IBM back in Pakistan, right? So I started really blue chip, like really corporate.
That was straight out of university.
That was straight out of my engineering school. So I grew up to be an engineer, and that was in Pakistan. I was the first one from my batch to get hired. Really excited to be in IBM, and those 2 years were quite traumatizing for me, right? Even though you got the best job, you got the job first in the entire batch, you were like the creme de la creme there. But what I really did not appreciate about IBM is just the bureaucracy of it all. Like even if you have to go do a proper engineering work, you have to be in a suit and a tie, and there are certain protocols that you follow. So it was a drag and
death by 1,000 cuts.
Yes, and I think it's a story that a lot of engineers could relate to. Like when you are in that environment and you want to escape that reality, you usually default to an MBA. And that is where you sort of do a grand reset of what you want to do.
That is 100% true.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's something that I did again in Pakistan. Both my engineering and business school are the top ones in Pakistan. But I spent 2 years there, came out of it, and then I was fortunate enough to join a relatively nascent sort of industry. So I was what we used to call it back then is mobile money, right? And we used to do fintech when there were no apps. Right, so the entire user interface for consumers were a feature phone where you used to dial in a number to call a service. Right, so if you were to transfer money between you and I would write *786# your phone number, amount, something else, and then it will sort of work. There's no interface.
And this is something North Americans don't really know because it was very much an emerging market thing. And I think like Grameen Bank and some of the microfinance institutions really pushed for this.
So this was actually built out of Africa and with Safaricom. So M-Pesa continues to be one of the largest sort of fintech players, if you may, across Africa, right? So they started off. It is called branchless banking. So there's no branches. There are agents across cash in, cash out points across the entire region. So I was fortunate to be in that industry. And Easy Paisa back in the day was the second largest globally in this space. So the kind of problems I used to run across, trying to build the product and grow them, everyone else across the world was. So there was no playbook for me to refer to and understand what's happening. And all of the growth playbooks were later in the day. So did that for about 4 years between pricing and sort of strategy, product and strategy roles. Quite exhilarating.
You were no longer traumatized.
Not at all, right? So this is like very, very, very interesting proposition for me. And then around that same time, Careem was making a way in, right? So sharing economy was back in this. So now I'm talking about 2014, 15, 16 time, right? So this sharing economy was the big thing globally. Everyone was putting money into it, behind it. I was curious that, okay, what else is happening there?
And remind people, for those that were born before, I don't know, probably 2009 or something, what the sharing economy is all about.
So it effectively is that I will offer you a service without really owning the underlying infrastructure, right? So it is there's an infrastructure that you built. It may be your car that sits idly for 80% of the time during the day. So you drive to work, it just parked there, and then you don't do anything with it, right? And then in the evening you go back, and then you
Airbnb
right?
being like
Airbnb
a huge
is another one, right?
Option,
so there's a piece of asset that someone owns which is not being utilized, and then through technology you're able to utilize it a lot more effectively, right? And that is where sharing economy came in. Uber and Airbnb are the two of the biggest examples of that.
Yeah.
And then around that point in time, both first Uber launched and then Careem launched. And then I knew a few friends who were there early on, and I made my way into the very founding team of Careem in Pakistan. So I was the fourth guy in the sort of region that I was managing. I was the only guy, and we had an office smaller than this, right? There were like 10 people crammed in. And from that onwards to the next 5-year journey at Careem, where I spent 2 years in Pakistan running their ride-hailing business, then got cherry-picked to come in and build and run their food delivery business across the region. That was like quite an interesting jump. So you effectively see a very scrappy company growing really fast And then back in the day, again, it was a zero interest rate period. So growth at all cost was the mandate. Like, for instance, I'm a guy who understands economics, like understands unit economics as well. For the first few years, no one really bothered to ask about revenue. Forget about bottom line. Right? So everything was, okay, growth, trips. So that was an interesting experience. And then halfway around, you're like, okay, talk about revenue. Then you'll talk about your GP, talk about your profitability of the country, of the portfolio. So that was an interesting entire spectrum that I saw.
And super interesting because Careem obviously was the biggest in terms of funding that you were a part of. I think while you were there, they had raised $770 million or something to the tune of that effect. And what's interesting is when I compare Easy Paisa and Jazz Cash was basically bootstrap / sort of corporate VC where their parent company was financing them. And it was, maybe $10-20 million. We don't know for sure. And then Easy Paisa raised approximately 10 million, but really not the type of investors you would expect, like not VCs. It's like Ant Group from China. So that's really interesting. An Alibaba connection, GSMA, and the Gates Foundation. So these are very different types of investors with different requirements for growth. And then you have Careem that's raising 60 million here, then 250, then 300 million, back to back to back. Talk a little bit about the difference in these organizations, the way that they used money, what you've learned if you were to be an entrepreneur, or how you sort of advise many of the startups, founders that you're advising now.
So again, I think it's important to outline the context of all of these different companies. Like Easy Paisa came around 2009 in Pakistan, right? The world was very different then versus when Careem started building 2012 all the way. I joined in 2016. I was there till 21. So I saw. So I joined July of 16, and in November they became unicorn with that round that came in.
Same year.
Right, the same year. So that was the moment that sort of that money came in, and then we saw how that money is being spent across.
Did you know that they were going to become a unicorn when you started?
Not at all.
Not at all?
Not at all. Like the only two cues I was following is that I knew that there was something big happening in sharing economy, and being in Pakistan, that was the most exciting thing happening for a young person to do. Right. And that is something that I chased. Right. And just on a personal note, I usually tell people that I'm a late bloomer. Around 2014-15 time, I read this book called Mindsets by Stanford Professor Carol S. Dweck. It talks about a lot of things, but one thing it talks about is growth mindset. Right. And in growth mindset, it talks about how effort is underappreciated and everyone is focused on outcomes. So that was a moment in my time where, prior to that phase of reading that book, my mantra in life was minimal effort for an average return. And then it switched to irrespective of the return, I'll put in the effort, right? And it's not like, again, I was able to get by quite favorably with my life leading up to that moment with the kind of effort I put in. But Careem was the moment where it was very clear for me that I'm putting in the 18 hours days. Like, this is the priority. Everything else is secondary. Right?
I love that that's the lesson you took from Carol Dweck's book, because for me, being half Japanese, I'm was trained to work 100-hour weeks from a child, basically. And I just have that instinct in me. So my takeaway from, Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset or fixed mindset is not to get stuck in, sometimes I can get stuck in black and white thinking where I can just say, I'm not good at that. So I'm just going to focus on the things that I'm really good at. But the growth mindset, that helped me reframe that was, I'm not good at that yet. But if I want to be good at it, I can put in the hours. And then I think of Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours to become an expert in anything. And then I go, okay, if you want to have the stamina and you want to do it and you've got the passion for it, then you can do it. But I love that, because I do now have a lot of friends who've gotten very far doing the minimal, and they constantly pitch this to me. And I just go, gosh, have I been doing it wrong all these years? But I think there's probably a happy medium where you go, work smart, but the effort actually counts. For me, I think luck is a lot more favorable to people who are a bit prepared.
or are in the battlefield, I think luck also is a lot more favorable to them. So I think those are the few cues that I took in my life. And again, this is coming from a guy who's like 26-year-old or 27-year-old back in the day, right? So for me, that was the moment, and hence I never really overthought about Careem or the Careem's journey. Like,
interesting.
What I thought about was that, okay, what is the objective at hand? What can I do to the best of my ability to execute on that objective? And I executed on that, and that is something that is struck with me following those 5 years, right? And I remember fondly of my time, that half a decade I spent at Careem. The organization evolved, people changed, I changed and evolved as well. But what I took away from that entire experience is that, okay, there's so much that is not really in your control. You have agency over a certain amount of things, and the most agency you have is on your own time and effort, right? And that is where you can sort of put in, and hence you should have faith in, as long as you're putting in the right effort to the best of your capability, Lady Luck is going to shine on you one fine day, right? Like, I think those are important considerations. But of course, you need to be mindful of which direction you're operating in it as well. So there are certain macros that you should be aware of, as opposed to just putting in the effort in the wrong direction. So again, long-winded answer, I was not really thinking about everything else. I was thinking about, trips. And the portfolio I was managing was a kick-ass portfolio, by the way, right? So the few cities that I was managing, that to this date, by the way, we know this, because when Uber transaction happened and we were able to figure out our market shares, that portfolio had the highest market share across the network for Careem, right? People were
Pakistan in general, or Islamabad?
Pakistan in general, and then Islamabad, the city that we were in. They had the highest penetration of ride-hailing versus the population.
Wow.
Right? And that is true, and that completely fundamentally rechanged the society that I was living in. So for me, what drove me back in the day was that there's the city that I grew up in. It has fundamentally changed the fabric of the society. Women can move around quite easily. Students can move around quite easily. I do not have to think about a lot of different things, right? So the life was really made interesting. There were so many people who were inspired by the Careem stories to do other things. So it sparked an entrepreneurial sort of spirit in the city, in the country as well. And then I was doing that with a bunch of 20-year-olds, right? So those were like a lot more of a driving factors than once you think about, like how much money have you raised? Is it a unicorn story? Will it be the largest exit? No one knew. Like all of us were executing on to the best of our abilities what is there. And what I really appreciate about Mudassir, Magnus and Abdullah is that they truly fundamentally empowered the front lines. Mira being there for 5 years, there was hardly a bureaucratic moment where I have to think about or I have to justify my own decision making to someone else, because I took complete ownership of what is assigned to me, and I will do whatever is whatever I believe is the best decision, right? If it falls flat, there's learning to be had, and then you sort of pass it along to other people to not repeat the same mistake. But it is quite fast and agile that way. So that was an interesting bit. I know we'll get to how founders should build right now. So one of my I wouldn't say regrets, but observations is that all of my peers in Careem and the way that we did company building, and there were a bunch of them who've not worked at IBM or these different sort of structured places before. That was their first or second proper job, and they learned that this is the right way to build the business, which I do not think stood the test of time. And that's an important distinction to make. Like, it's important, like you'll hear, I'm sure you hear everyone talk about unit economics, fundamentals of the business right now. This was not the conversation back in the day.
I see.
Right?
So you're saying even though Careem was such a success story, it was a success story for its time, and obviously it still is. And I'm sure, I'm quite certain they've made some massive changes in the last few years. But in that time, there was such a focus on growth without the fundamentals that you might say they kind of got lucky. Right place, right time, right idea.
Again, luck shines on whoever it does. Like, there were other players who came in across the region as well. We gave a lot of fight to a well-funded, better technology player in our core markets. I think, though I wouldn't take that away. So I don't think it's pure luck that worked in Careem's way. The point I'm trying to make here is that there were peers of mine, my colleagues in Careem, who learned company building and business building in a certain way, in a certain environment.
In a certain time.
In a certain time. And when they came out, became founders and entrepreneurs and started their own businesses, 2020, 2021. And when the music stopped, they had to quickly readjust, and not everyone had the right capabilities or competencies to adjust. Because that was the only way they've seen company building, right?
Yeah.
And it was quite different for them, or difficult for them to understand that, okay, there are different ways to think about it. Like, if I'll give you a very simple example. Both in EasyPass and JazzCash, you've talked about the numbers, millions of subscribers, right? And there were a lot of ways that we used to grow them. It was clearly known that pricing is a lever we will never touch. We will never compete on price. We will not undercut and do a discount. We will think of all the 15 or 100 different ways to grow the business, create awareness, create intent, but we will never think about pricing. In Careem and Uber days, the first thing you used to play with was pricing, either through a promotion or by undercutting the price or launching a more price conscious or a price optimized product. So the thinking is completely inversed. Right? So I think that's an important distinction that I think people who built around that point in time couldn't really think about it, or it took them time to adjust to that reality.
I do hear a lot of VCs saying this, and even with seasoned startup founders that are quite strong, even when their fundamentals were strong, they were sort of pushed and forced sometimes by the investor to grow faster than maybe the founder was comfortable doing. And that was just the nature of that time. So yeah, I think that we've seen a dramatic shift from 2022 to 2023 and onwards. But tell me, from your time at Careem, was there something you took away and you thought, wow, if, this is a part of the secret sauce in terms of how they either built the team, scaled, maybe competencies of the founding team, or maybe it's more of something more je ne sais quoi about them that you've taken forward and go, this is something that I learned from my time at Careem that I kind of look for in other startups now.
So we've talked about ownership, right? And ownership not at the founder level, but ownership all the way down to a person who may be doing an account management for you, like 3 layers, 4 years down the line. Right? So we've talked about that. And I think it is integral that whoever is bought into the startup mission understands that this is a startup, this is a mission, it's not really a regular job, right? And you're executing on that mission. And I think the founder's responsibility is to outline it, articulate it, continue to reinforce it, right? And the beauty about ownership is that you cannot micromanage it. It cannot be top down. You can showcase it, right, as a founder, but you have to have the belief and the trust that people in the right places will continue to show ownership and do the right thing, which is easier said than done. Like seen that time, and specifically when a company sees stage or Series A scales. At the time of scale, I've seen it time and again that founders cannot learn it because this is their baby. They've worked on it for 3 years every day. They've thought about it almost 95% of their time, right? So it's very difficult for them to let go and let someone else in a different market make decisions and take it forward. So that's just the one part. The other is just the speed of execution. Never once did I waste a day or an hour on a decision. Or I've seen people waste a day or an hour in a decision. Right? So they make a decision quickly and then they execute rather fast. And this may be public knowledge or not, but I think people should read this a bit more. But what I really appreciated about Careem, and I think it is a secret sauce, we used to use Slack internally, like thousands of people across different markets looking at Slack. And there used to be a channel called To The Moon. And in To The Moon, there were a few KPIs that came in every 15 minutes. It used to be 5 minutes. It got down to 15 minutes, then it got down to 30 minutes as we scaled. And you used to look at what are the trips of my city? How does it compare to the last hour, last day, last month? And what is the number of trips and a few of the metrics for all the other cities in the network? So you have this rhythm.
Wow.
Where you figure out that, 11 a.m., I know whether this is a good day or not. And I would know that what to roll out by 12, by noon, for the second half to be a good day or not. Right? And this is something that you would see. There's a competitive spirit. There's whatever else you would call it. Like there's a rhythm to it. And that rhythm is so the cadence of it is so beautiful that you can realize and act on it rather quickly. Even today, I see companies in our portfolio which wouldn't really know how last week went. Right, so that is something which is an important one to look into. Right, so ownership is one, pace of execution and the feedback loop and how you continue to sort of act on it.
Strong
I think
metrics.
those are like very interesting bits there. And then again, culture, you cannot undermine it. It was a sort of culture where a supply manager who's a layer 3 sitting in Riyadh will challenge Mudassir if he were to come into Riyadh and talk about something. Like that supply manager would feel like Careem is like more of his than it is of Mudassir's. Right. So you cannot undermine that. It takes a lot more time and effort to create it, to continue to cultivate it, and as you scale, how do you keep it in certain functions and departments of the organization? Because engineers may think differently to designers, to operations people, to people who are out there in front of customers. So how do you sort of maintain that?
I really love that, actually. And I think it speaks to the first point you made about the ownership piece. And I feel, if you are a startup founder and everyone is looking to you to sort of double check their decisions, then you're not providing enough ownership. Yep. And I would say I'm often at fault for this as well. So as I'm listening to you, I'm really going, actually I need to double check myself of how much there's this difference between how much do you empower, but really how much ownership do you give away? And it is really tough, I think, especially in, as you said, in those early years where you're building and scaling and you've got the right team in place, but somehow, everyone comes back to the founder and just goes, hey, just wanted to double check on something.
So again, this is debatable, right? This is my view of it. You've also heard about founder mode recently. Founder mode. Like there's the entire thing that came around out of North America recently, that a founder should be micromanaging. Like it came around.
I think founder mode. Yeah.
Paul Graham wrote an essay and then it became a thing and then everyone started talking about it. And then not too long ago, there was this wartime CEO versus normal CEO. So we've seen that, right? So there are moments when a founder has to lean in. And then there are moments when you have to let go and you need to see how the right people are allowing you to scale. Right. So again, there's no right answer into it.
Yeah.
This is what I remember from my time at Careem, which is also now a long time ago.
But I bet you, and I can only go off my gut experience, but lately this is something that's been very alive for me. And I think if you're a founder out there, you know if it's time to let go. Like your life is probably feeling less enjoyable because you're over managing things and the signs are all there. So all it takes is a moment of silence and a little meditation to kind of go, am I that guy? Am I that founder? And you probably have a pretty keen sense on whether you are or not. I love that. Hey, if you really enjoy this content, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to know more information about any of the startups or investors that we covered, then go to www.lucidityinsights.com and look for the startup and investor databases that we've developed for you there. There, you can go and look up whichever investor you're curious about, search for them, find out what their average check sizes are, who's on their team, how many companies they've invested in so far, and you can do your research right there to see if they might be a strategic investor for you. For startups that you're interested in, understanding their fundraising journey, you can go and check out our startup database. You can look up any startup in the Middle East and Africa. There's new ones being added every single day, and you can check out what their fundraising story is. And if we've recorded a podcast with the founder, you can find that there too. Hope you enjoy. I want to touch a little bit, but you've had this unique experience that a couple thousand employees at Careem have had of being employees of a company that has such a massive acquisition take place. I mean, it was the first major official unicorn in the UAE when Uber decided to buy Careem for $3.1 billion again in 2019. And you stayed until 2021, I believe. Yeah. So you saw that post-merger integration process and you were there for the whole thing. So I want to ask, because I've had a few friends go through it, and I myself haven't had that big of an acquisition, but I've sold some old companies, and it's always different. It's always, there's the dream of what you think it's going to be, and then there's all of these realities of what that means on the ground that you may have not thought of before it happened. Can you speak a little bit about what your experience was, and just so that you can ground everyone out there, like what does it mean when a big company comes and acquires you and gives you this beautiful exit, but what are some of the great things that come with that, but also some of the challenges that come with that?
I'll start with a quick disclaimer, right? So I was not as involved in the entire post-merger and the integration phase. Like I could understand what was happening. Like for instance, the first thing I picked up was how important tech compliance was. And I used to go to the product guys and the tech guys for an entire roadmap of features we wanted to build on food delivery. And then they'll be like, oh, I've dedicated X percentage of my bandwidth just doing work to comply with these standards because we will be a part of a publicly traded US company. So it's different standards, right? And people don't think about it perhaps, but that was cost that at least I or someone like me in my shoes had to sort of bear with. But specifically, what I saw about the Uber Careem transaction is that the way that it was set up, and again, I'm not privy to the legal terms of it all and the timelines around it, but for a leader who's responsible to build a core business and scale it, and the kind of signals I saw, I think it was quite collaborative. Because back in the day, Uber had Uber Eats here and in Saudi, right? So I was actually a part of the entire conversation with my counterparts on the Uber side for us to take over their business and their consumer base, and they were open with it. And so you're like, I'm working with people whose job will not be there in next month, right? So. Which is not something you think about for when a big company is acquiring you, right? Or creates an interest into you.
In that sense, is it because Careem Food was doing so much better than Uber Food and it was such an expense for them that they thought, okay, well, we'll shut down our operations and just...
I can't speak for their own objectives and motives, but what I would understand is that they had earmarked other regions for them to grow the food delivery business in. They did similar transactions in Southeast Asia. They in fact sold complete like ride-hailing businesses in different parts of the world and were a lot more focused in certain geographies, right? So I can't really speak for the motives behind it, but it so happened that we took over that business in UAE and Saudi, and we had this entire migration that happened, and like we were involved and plugged in. But on an overall level, it was quite collaborative. Careem continued to have quite a free hand in the way that we executed across markets. And I think this also came in perhaps from Dara's experience of doing different acquisitions in his previous companies, right? So he was known to be a guy who used to grow on the back of acquiring companies and acquiring them in a way where you do not really kill the spirit and the value that you offer, but you integrate it in a very seamless way. And I think that is where the Careem brand continued to be there, the ride-hailing business continued to be there. You did not integrate teams. Like yesterday, I saw one of my colleagues now migrating from Careem to Uber, right? After so many years, like we're sitting in 2025, like 6 years after the first announcement and the integration, right? So they took their own time, making sure that everything was operating in the right way, and we focused on the right priorities, and we integrated in the right sort of timelines as well, which was again, I think, completely unique to Careem and Uber, and all the other stories I've heard
are horrible.
Yeah. All right. So
I love that. I love that. I think it's very true. I think we need to bring back a bit of this slow down and do things sensibly approach. And I've been a part of some horrible takeovers where you need a couple years to understand how the business work, how the people are working within them, how the teams are working before you kind of just take it and try and swallow it, because I think a lot of the value gets washed up in that process.
And I think the reason also we need to understand is that Careem at the time of that acquisition was not a small player,
Right.
Right? In certain markets, they were the leader, and in other markets, they were not, but they were not behind by a long margin.
Yeah. You were
Right.
a vicious contender
Right.
against Uber.
So from that perspective, even from a buyer's perspective, you do not want that value to erode.
Yeah.
You do not want that momentum to be affected. It is not really in your interest to do all of the transaction and all of the work to then effectively realize that, this asset that I've acquired has been compromised.
Right.
So that's an important distinction. And the other side is, and again, I've been doing venture over 3.5 years. I run across founders almost like every few hours. The quality of the founding team and the leadership of Careem, it's also rare to see. Right? So there were people who came in from very rich backgrounds. They had already been part of very interesting conversations or moments in time, and they knew how to negotiate and handle and what to take care of.
Yeah.
Right, which is also not, and this came in an environment where VC was not really like. I don't think the investors were where the value was back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's also an important distinction to make. And we do have such similar quality of founders now, but like, are there more than 10 companies who have that? I don't think so. I don't think there's an 11th company which has the same stature of founders in our region, and that is growing with the passage of time. So that's also an important thing that is unique to Careem Uber transaction.
So let's take a breath here. So we've talked all about your operating experience. Yeah. You left in the summer of 2021.
Yep.
I noticed there was a nice 6-month sabbatical before you chose to do anything. I'm dying to ask you, what did you do? Did you know that you were going to probably want to make a move to the investor side? What was going through your head at the time? What advice do you have for all those people that are burnt out, finished at, massive roles, and they're kind of contemplating their next steps?
It's not surprising, but often I do have these conversations with old colleagues and friends who spent like 5 years, 7 years, 8 years in a company like Careem, and I'm talking about other companies as well, who are in that mark in their life where they want to sort of take a break. And from my own experience, I've learned a lot. So one of the first advices I usually give them is, please slow down. I remember my first few weeks after Careem, and I left not to become an investor, by the way. I left with the objective of figuring it out. And I was in a time and place where I wanted to sort of take some time off, be with friends, be with family, spend some time with my daughter who was 1 year old back in the day. So for me, the first few weeks of leaving Careem, I was again overworked because I was just catching up with old friends, new friends in the US, people in Singapore, trying to sort of absorb everything. And then in those 2 to 3 weeks, I realized that, like, what am I doing? I need to just take a break. And I've seen it time and again with all of my friends who've made this, because there's this momentum that you have once you've been a part of something as fast-paced as Careem or other places, that it's just very difficult to slow down. And you carry that momentum, and the first few weeks, you feel like the top of the world, everything I can do. Like, there's just so much happening outside of whatever I was doing in life. And then you meet with all of these different people, and then you quickly decide on something which you eventually regret. So my first advice is just to slow down, right? Like,
I love that.
It is just rare for me to see a person who's been accomplished in certain part of their life not find something exciting in 6 months to 9 months. So as long as you have that comfort that there's no paycheck coming, every month is actually not great for you financially speaking, but as long as you have this comfort that I will find what is my next calling or next phase in 6 to 9 month times, I think everyone does that. Like, I cannot think of a single person out of these 40, 50 people that I know who have not found something which is they're excited about. But
I know people freak out, but no one goes starving ever.
Nothing else.
Nothing crazy like that has ever happened. People do find that. And I think the other thing, I'm a huge fan of sabbaticals as well. I was scared shitless the first time I took one in my late 20s. And I remember a client actually telling me, Erika, you will be more employable when you come back from that sabbatical and a year off than, if you just work yourself to death at the next job, or take the next role just because it's a good opportunity, but you're not sure. You do need to take that time. to also wait for the right opportunity to come as well. I think a lot of people make that mistake of taking the next thing and this scarcity mindset. And I think there's real value to what you've said about taking it slow and being measured about your next steps.
So, and around this point in time, again, I started off with a good trip. Like, I think it was this time 4 years ago that I left Careem, right? So a bunch of our friends had organized a trip to Masai Mara. We just relaxed with the kids and everything. So that was like a good beginning of slowing down. The other part was that there was just so much that I had deprioritized or ignored of my life during those Careem days, which I had to prioritize again, which is as simple as getting a driving license. Like
wow.
I didn't ever, my wife used to drive me around. I didn't have a driving license. I was not in good health. I didn't used to exercise. So I picked up yoga. I started working out. Like those things which you do end up trading off against. I think it's important to sort of strike a balance again before you do other things. And to your point about finding what is next, I do not think by sitting idly you can find things. You'll have to be out there. You'll have to be a part of conversations. You'll have to sort of read up, think about, reflect what pathways to take. And my pathway into investing was serendipitous completely, right? Like I had no ambition of becoming an investor. I had no plans. I did not even understand what it meant to that level of detail. And it was through my friends that I got introduced to a bunch of VCs. Some of my other colleagues also went into, like from Careem, went into becoming sort of in the VC space. I spoke to the class 5 guy, Zach, who was an old colleague of mine. He used to lead IR for Careem. And he became the general partner for Class 5 early stage venture. So spoke to him. I spoke to Vail Nafi, who's a partner at Riot. I spoke to a few other friends of mine who were exploring similar sort of transitions. I spoke to Ankur, who's the CFO of Careem before when the transition happened. Such a wise, deep guy. So I think you lean on other people's insight. You also reflect a bit more. And then through these introductions, I got to know Shane and then Mahmood and then the rest of the team. And Shorooq had already invested in a bunch of my friends' companies.
Interesting.
Right? So I knew from them how these guys are and the firm is like. And then I got to know them in person as well. And then they seeded the idea that, okay, we're looking for someone like your profile. Why don't you come in and try this out and see where it goes? And that is where we sort of, this happened October of 21, and then November or December, we decide, okay, let's try this out, right? And then January I start. And everyone knows this in the firm, all the new hires, so I was the first guy in Dubai. Like the firm was Abu Dhabi, we were just opening up a Dubai office. And what I like about, again, my Shorooq journey is that Shorooq is also a startup. Now Dubai is the largest office. We have a bunch of really exciting colleagues who do multiple things there. A few people who were in Abu Dhabi also relocated here, so that was also the case. And I joined them to work on the venture side. Our first office was in a villa right opposite N5 in Dubai.
Okay.
And I usually joke around. And by the way, we used to sit in seats which have this table, the student table of sorts.
Yeah.
And I used to take like founder calls on founder meetings there. And I used to say, oh, you may have a cushy office. This is a startup. Look where, so like I can relate to you. And I came from Careem, so they also sort of could relate to me a bit differently to all the other VCs who had like flashy offices and finance backgrounds and whatnot. So that was an interesting bit to come in. And I say this today, and I've said it, I think, 10 days into Shorooq, and it's constant. And you can speak to the rest of the firm or the colleagues as well. I worked in quite exciting places. I worked with really ambitious and competent people. It was rare for me to sit in an organization and be on calls and meetings and with people where there's this sheer concentration of ambition, competence, and warmth. Right? So that was difficult. Like I had not experienced it before. Like how come all of these guys are really competent and really good and really fast and ambitious, right? I do believe the kind of work ethic like Shorooq and my colleagues and my friends have, it's rare for me to see. I was used to it because of Careem, but it's just rare to see in my other circle. But all of that is expected. what was unexpected for me was that how are these nice people? Like, how can all of this be together?
You thought they had to be like villainous investors.
Yeah, like that's been my experience, right? Like, you come across really ambitious people, high performing teams, but they're not warm and fuzzy, right? So there's something about them which was unique, which was good natured, right? And it continues to be. And I think that is the secret Shorooq thing, which again, I was the first guy in Dubai. We've had so many people that we've hired since then, right? The firm has grown from, I think I was the 10th guy coming in overall across all functions. So we have lawyers, we have finance guys as well. And now we're close to like mid-20s, right? So we've grown for the profile of a firm that we are. We'll never be 100 people, but having 25 people around doing multiple things for an investment firm is also not too small, right? So I think that was a unique part, and I got into it. First year was a giant experiment. Candidly, everyone knew about this. And the few questions I wanted to answer for myself and for the other guys were that, number one, do I enjoy doing early stage investing? Am I good at it or not? And are these the right people to do this with or not? First, do I enjoy doing it? That was a slamming yes. I knew like this was very interesting, and we can talk about what I really, really value and enjoy about early stage investing. Whether I'm good at it or not, the operator in me was sad to hear that, like, to realize that in this business, you cannot figure that out anytime soon. So the feedback loops are
7, 8 to 10
so
years.
long.
Yeah.
And the feedback loops are so ambiguous that you may have had a fantastic bunch of investments, but you were just in a different environment versus, and you may have completely lose all money, but you were in a different environment, right? So it is a bit unclear how you think about whether I'm a good early stage investor or not. So that the jury is still out there 3.5 years in. And the third one, whether these are the right people, which I think we've talked about, like I was motivated by and excited about the ambition they have, the pace of execution, and that the firm is growing. So it's always great to be a part of a growing story.
I understand. So you guys, I pulled some numbers off of Lucidity Insights, our investor database. And so hopefully these are up to date. But Shorooq has signed over 120 funding deals since inception in around 2016-17. There's over 80 startups in your portfolio, in the venture portfolio. It seems that you write anywhere between 12 to 24 checks in a year.
Yep.
So far this year, we've clocked 7.
9 as of yesterday.
9 now.
Yesterday,
okay, as of yesterday.
Yeah.
And generally, so you've raised four funds.
3 funds.
3 funds.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a part 1 and part 2 to one of them?
So the first is what we call it the Fund 0. So the origin story of Shorooq, and we can get to it as well. The first few years we used to do deal by deal structures, which we've jumbled together. A proper sort of fund, the first vintage was 2019. And the second one vintage, which is now we call it the third fund, is a 22 vintage, which we are now even actively investing from.
And are all of the sums for, how much is your last fund?
160.
160 million.
Yeah.
Okay. And how much of it do you think you deployed?
We're halfway there yet. We're halfway there. We have still capital left for a bunch of new tickets, 8 to 10 new tickets or new investments. And the rest is reserved for follow-ons. So
that's fun that you actually started in 2022. You guys raised this in 2022. So this is really the vintage that, you will be able to assess yourself at the end, whenever that finish line is, which remains arbitrary. But I'm curious, I've heard, Shane and Mahmoud talk in the past, and there's, even though everyone is sector agnostic because everyone's quite opportunistic in this region, there does seem to be some sectors that are super hot in certain times. Gaming, I know, was one of them that you guys were really forward on a few years ago. What would you say, if you could say, are some of the sectors that are really heating up right now that you guys are really excited about?
So let's first talk about the sector agnostic bit. I think it is imperative for most VCs operating in this region that they remain agnostic. Because again, the ecosystem is maturing, but it is still very nascent relatively to a lot of other places, right? what we realized, and this is a very personal call between all the few of us who are on the venture side and we invest, that we are a lot more excited about infrastructure plays, which tend to be B2B, which tend to be picks and shovels businesses. And these businesses do well as the entire sector or subsector does well, as opposed to taking a bet on one of the 5 things that could work in that sector. So hence, a good 80% of our portfolio is B2B infra.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, easily. Like, let's talk about Nemcard, which is in the fintech infra space. All of the other clients are, Pemo is a portfolio company of ours, right? It is their client. All 4 or 5 competitors of Pemo are Nemcard's clients, right? So as long as that sector does well, Nemcard will do well. And similarly, they have other sectors that they address beyond fintech as well, right? So they're in the card payment and issuance business. So they build the rails around it. So anytime Pemo or their competitors or that sector does well, Nemcard will continue to do well. They've now developed similar infrastructure for other subsectors in financial services as well. The other is Lean. It's an open banking platform. Sarva is a client of Lean, right? And similarly, all of other Sarva's competitors may be clients of Lean's as well. So as open banking as a sector, or as fintech, or even enterprise who are doing embedded finance scale, Lean will do well, right? So that's an important distinction for us, and we like those type of businesses a lot more as well. Present day, how we think about it is that we continue to remain bullish on the fintech infra side. There are a bunch of things that are happening on that side. Recently, we've done a lot on prop tech as well, which is
I saw that you guys have an investment in Pripco.
Yeah, we're the only firm or VC that sort of came in. They're absolutely crushing it as well. So prop tech is interesting, and we continue to see deal flow there. Saudi lending we like a lot, right? So we have Lendo from our previous portfolio, Tamara as well. And then there are a bunch of other companies. Mala we've done an investment in, and we're seeing a few in the pipeline as well. So I think these are the few sectors which are interesting. And the last one, which is a bit cliched, of course, AI is everywhere. But in the context of our region, what we've realized is, and it's quite interesting, that there were AI dev shops which stumbled upon a product and then they raised money. And that is like 90% of the companies that we come across. And then we also backed a bunch of them as well. Very recently, we've started to see global talent relocating here. And these may be people who are originally from the region and are coming back, or maybe people who are not really from the region but are coming here for a multitude of reasons. And they're building now companies on the new stack. So AI for me is a new technology stack. I do not think too much about it, right? It is a tool for a company to do things well, right?
Yeah, because
right?
I've also read a recent report saying, like in the region, something like 82% of AI startups are ones that have just rebranded as AI startups because, of course, they've incorporated so much, AI tools into their business model.
So what's more interesting for me is that, okay, what are you using this tool for, right? Are you building are you building a tool which is in the marketing or martech space? Are you building a tool for automobile and mobility? Are you building a tool for insurance? Are you building a tool like what subsector or sector are you focused on? Are you building tools for the government sector? So that is more interesting. So that is my first question, as opposed to, you're an AI company. That's not really. I'm focused a lot more on the commercial opportunity. And then I'll try to figure out whether you are the right people to use this new tool to unlock something on there, right? So that's also coming in. But like I personally and the firm, we do not think about AI as a standalone thing. We think about, okay, AI is important, but it cuts across in multiple.
So I've heard you say infrastructure plays, which of course includes the fintech on the back end of that, prop tech being one, AI, you're saying it's a buzzword. We're more interested in something more substantial than that. What else? Are you guys still looking at gaming? Are there cybersecurity?
Yep. So cybersecurity, we did a deal recently, both on the software side. Is a company called Corgia out of San Francisco, fantastic founder, who are executing quite quickly. And they're actually, it's a 4-person team, and their product is now peer reviewed, is all the raves, all the cybersecurity experts are like, okay, they do basically vulnerability detection in your code through all this new AI stack, right? So they design agents, if you may, or tooling to allow devs and companies to take care of their code base a lot more. The other is a company called Secure, out of Saudi, that does not cybersecurity, but there's operational security for endpoints, which are like, these could be your wells in the oil and gas sector, or it could be a small factory floor or an assembly line. And it has both IoT sensors and software to develop that, right? So that's something that we've done a lot more on. I'll just correct one thing. So we do not believe AI is a buzzword. AI is a focus, but we think about it rather differently. So a lot of companies will say that, oh, we backed AI companies, like A, B, and C. Corgia is an AI company. CQR, the way that they're building things, they are deploying AI into it as well. Mozen is a different company that goes deep into developing AI tools for their own clients. Similarly, Intelmatics out of Saudi. So there are a bunch of companies that do that. We have a focus on it, and on AI, the diligence that we run is usually 80% the same. The 20% is we want to understand as founders and as your engineering team, do you have the right competence to build on this new tool stack or not? Mm-hmm. Or are you just saying something and you'll figure it out? Mm-hmm. Right, so that's slightly different, but we do have a very strong focus on AI or AI companies.
Fair.
So Fair. That's broadly where the focus is.
Okay, as we're starting to run out of time, I'm going to do a bit of a more rapid fire round. Solo founder or founding team? Do you have a preference?
Founding team.
When it comes to founders pitching for funding for the very first time and approaching you, what's your biggest pet peeve right now?
Being not prepared to understand what the questions would be given our mandate and our investment style.
And hopefully everyone gets it from this episode. They've come prepared, watch this episode, know what you guys are looking for. What's your biggest advice that you have for founders right now that are raising in this climate?
I think right now is the best time to build businesses or companies. I genuinely believe that.
Say more about that. I want to know more about that.
Right. So opportunity is opportunity, right? So I don't think the regional opportunity has shrunk over the last half a decade. If anything, it has only increased. What is unique about this decade, so to speak, let's take the lens of a decade, right? Decade is that the right founders can fundamentally build companies in a unique way with far less resources and capital, and can also scale in a different way as well. And a lot of our founders do not realize that or recognize that. Like $1 million will go a long way than $1 million did back in 2020 or 2022.
Ooh, right? I love that.
So that's an important.
And do you think that is that AI element of all of these tools that are able to scale things and create things for you that we didn't have a few years ago?
100%. That's one. And the other is, which is really exciting about this part of the world, is you can find A+ talent here now. And on top of that, depending on what your business model is, I think this is the only part of the world globally where your revenues are pegged to Europe and US, but your labor cost, if I may, right, or human capital cost is not really pegged to those places. And depending on, again, if the business is a bit more operationally heavy, you can get by with beautiful economics of the business, which may not work in other parts of the world.
100%.
Right? So BNPL makes sense here. Food delivery makes sense here beautifully. It does not work in a lot of other parts of the world. Right? So have that regional or situational awareness as well. And of course, unless and until you're not long on the region, that's another thing. But most people I meet are long on the region over the decade. Right? And I think that's why I believe this is the very interesting time.
What has surprised you most in terms of changing your perspective now that you've become an investor? Now that you're on this side of the table, what have you learned that you're like, I didn't know this as an operator?
So as an operator, there's so much that I didn't know, which I figured out. So these days I've been reflecting on me as an investor. And even though my journey as an investor is not too long, it's been 3.5 years, but I am still even now I'm getting feedback loops where I've underappreciated founders of a certain background who in retrospect may not have a lot of things going for them. Like they may not be articulate perhaps, but in those 3 years have executed so wonderfully versus all the typical profile of a founders that we used to look at. Again, the ecosystem is also maturing and we're trying to realize that a lot more as investors as well. So I think that is a reflection that I take, and now I'm a lot more cautious about what I personally feel about the founder. And so I'm always I undermine my own biases and my own views on people now, which I used to lean a lot more on. And my view was that, as an early stage investor, you should be very people heavy and you should have a gut feel and you should lean on that gut feel. Perhaps I have not developed it, but I think that's an important one to look at. But as an operator and as an investor, there's a lot. Okay, I'll say the one most important key learning as an operator and entrepreneur versus an investor. It takes an hour or a day for an investor to change their mind. As an operator, there are real reasons why it will take you a month to change your mind. Because you're really deep into something and you have momentum going on for yourself and you had made promises to your teams, clients, and you're going in a certain direction. And I am super lucky that I joined or I became a part of the investment circle January 22 because I saw the entire cycle turn. Like my 22 first 9 months, aggressively competing on deals, second half completely different. Most investors did not take more than 3 weeks between all of them to change their mind. It took certain companies 2 weeks, other companies 2 years to figure out that everything has changed. And I think the same is true for people who do not recognize all the tools and the resourcefulness of this new technology and how you can fundamentally build companies differently now. And you do not recognize it, and you may recognize it as an operator, as a founder 3 years down the line. We see it, other people see it. It's important for you to lean into that trend a lot more faster, and you need to course correct. Like it's very difficult for an operator to change their view. You can do subtle changes very rapidly. You cannot do fundamental changes. So that was like one of the key.
I really love that piece of advice. And I think it ties into some of the advice we were talking about at the beginning and in the middle about building sometimes a little bit slower or slowing down, because when you do slow down to really, think about where you are and what you're doing, sometimes those decisions come a little bit easier. But if you're going at breakneck speeds and you're trying to just push this, thing through the wall, it's unlikely that you're going to be one of those people that can pivot that quickly.
As long as you have the right partners alongside you, specifically on the investor side, I do think you should put a lot more weightage to what they're saying. Our interests are tied with your interests as a founder, more often than not. Right? It's rare cases that they're not, but 95% of the time they're always tied. And as long as you believe that the investor that you got on board is A+, has your best interest in mind, the unique vantage point that an investor has, very few people have. Like my ability to learn something from a founder in a different sector and apply it to a different business, only I have, and that advice potentially only I can give. Right? So trusting people telling you time and again on a certain direction, and you may have your own views on it, I think it's important to put a bit more weightage on it as well. And I've seen founders like, this is not the AI part, the entire 22 slowdown, 23 slowdown. I can name companies who recognized either because of us or independently that things have changed and they course corrected. They're in a fundamentally different place right now versus all the other people who continued with the momentum and then took a bit more time. Took like 3 months more time. Because in those 3 months, they had burnt the money that could have been there.
Used to pivot.
Yeah, right. So those are important, I think, realizations for me.
Omer, I feel like we could have talked for another hour, but our time is up. I really look forward to having one of these conversations with you again. I really thank you for so many insights. Again, we spent half the time on the operating side, and so we didn't get to go too deep on the investor side, but I think there's some massive, massive learnings there that will be supportive to the founding community here.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you sort of inviting me over. Happy to chat anytime again as well.
Thanks so much. We'll catch you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good one. Bye.
Hey there. Thanks for joining this conversation. If you enjoyed that episode and you want to start researching potential investors for your startup's fundraising strategy, go to lucidityinsights.com and sign up now to the startup registration package by clicking the plans button on the top right corner. We look forward to having you join our future conversations and checking out our additional content. Until next time, stay hungry and stay humble.